So my name is Jon Andersson. I'm a consultant in nature conservation. I'm also working quite a lot with graphics and GIS, and I'm doing forest inventories. So I'm going to talk a bit about targets, protection targets, conservation targets, international targets, and then contrast that to what we have left to protect. So first, I will try to define a little bit what I'm talking about here. And in northern Sweden, we have a little bit of primeval forest or pristine forest or whatever forest, not very much affected by cuttings or loggings in the past. And then we have some natural forests that have been touched by selective cuttings. And also we have a lot of production forest. And this specific stand here to the right is, so it's like it has an age ready for logging. It is a grown-up stand, but the production forest consists of various age classes from younger stands up to 80 to 100 years old up here before we clear cut them. I should also say that this primeval forest or forests that have very little traces from forestry, they are mostly found in the western part along the foothills of the Skandis. So I will simplify a bit and call these to the left continuity forest, where there have been no clear cutting, and the other to the right, the production forest, there have been at least one clear cutting event. I should also say that there is a very big difference in how these have regenerated. The continuity forest, they have mostly regenerated from fires that moved through the landscape in the past, while the production forest obviously grown up after clear cuttings. It's also important, which you already know, most of you, that the natural forest and the primeval forest, they have a much larger variation in tree height, tree diameter. They're more coarse dead wood and so forth, so on. So they have a much higher structural variety. How much is left of these forests then? Actually, there is no really good mapping of this continuity forest. We have a project going on, that ongoing project, that maybe we can answer this question. What we know is that at least 75% been clear cut since the 50s. So we know at least something about it. We also know that these forests that are now left the continuity forest, they have a higher biodiversity than the production forest. I know foresters, some say that it is not a black and white landscape and this and that, but if you're working with inventories of forests and you go out and look, you will certainly not find a very high diversity of red listed species in the production forest, that's for sure. You will find them in these natural forests. And if you find a patch of primeval forests, obviously you will find higher biodiversity there of these rarer species. So now we know what we're talking about. The continuity forest, it is within the red rectangle and the other is outside it. So I have used data from the Swedish Environmental Agency that it depicts forests that have never been clear cut. So it is a data on non-clear cut forest patches, and it is in 3 counties, in Jämtland, Västernorrland, Västerbotten. To the right also you can see a little map where it is in Sweden, these 3 counties. I have used a circle landscape unit, which I moved around this whole landscape pixel by pixel. It has a radius of 12.5 kilometers, which gives, if I haven't miscalculated, and an area about 490 square kilometers. To the left, you can see a little scale bar with colors, how many percent of the landscape around such a little ring moving around the landscape that contains sea forest or continuity forest. I should also mention that it considers productive forest land, and also all the protected forest is included in this. So now to the targets. We have previously heard someone mention the ACHI target, which states a long text, which I've written there on the left. I don't think I will read it entirely. If you want to, you can go and look it up on Google. So what you see here on the map is places in this area where you can find landscapes with a circular landscape with a diameter of 25 kilometers that contains 17% and more of this continuity forest. And why is this important? Because it says that the target itself says that these forests should contain 70% of forest that is, or any other type of habitat that is representative and functional. We know that these continuity forests, it is the closest to what we have, what we can call functional habitats. So if we want to preserve something, we need to look for those. And this is the parts of the landscape where we can find 17%. So you see that most of it is stacked up in the west. So if we take another target, which is even more ambitious, the global deal for nature, which was given by a bunch of researchers, they want to protect 30%. Yeah, then it obviously gets worse. It's almost only along the foothills of the Scandis. You can see there a little, like a comma sign along the coast. That's an island. So the island itself is mostly a nature reserve, and then it's surrounded by water. So then it's very easy to get this percentage in the little circle there. But the rest of it, you cannot find that. And here we have the Half Earth initiative, which I like a lot, of course. It would be very desirable, of course, but we will not find any such landscapes in this region, at least. Now, the little circle in the middle there, it is the one unit I used. It is a very small landscape in ecology. If we want to make this landscape bigger, the problem we get is that the percentage of continuity forest decreases, and it's because the continuity forest, it is not evenly dispersed over this area. It is actually clustered. So when you increase the size of your unit, then most of the unit will fall outside your cluster, and then you will get a very low percentage. And then you will obviously also get lower percentages along the mountain range in the west. I also did a little run with a tool called Circuitscape, which uses circuit theory, like a current of electricity going through a landscape with, in this case, continuity forest. This tool is widely used on big landscapes. It gives very illustrative results. So to the left here is a map that depicts the general species non-specific connectivity. So it's not any specific species or with a specific range or special range or anything. It's just the general current of species and resources and green infrastructure in the landscape. In this case, in the left case, the whole landscape consists of forest that is equally good for rare species or generalist species. To the right, on the other hand, I use the data on continuity forest that is left today. And then, unfortunately, we can see that we only have a good current in the west. Apart from that, the landscape doesn't have any clear direction. You can see in small patches where we have a lot of formal protection that there is a little bit better current, but in most cases it is not. We can move forward. It's a good tool, Circuitscape. I can recommend using it, although it is quite messy, but it's a good tool. Here, this is like the reality. This is what we're living with now. This is like the formal protection we have. So the government has protected this since we started to protect forest in 1909. We already know that along the mountain range, above this lower limit of montane forest that is now drawn in orange, there is a lot of protection. So it is almost 50% in my county, Västerbotten, the one to the north here, and Jämtland to the lower left, 25%. But as soon as you step below that limit, then there's almost nothing. 2.8%, 1.6%. So it's bits and pieces that's left. Also, I should say that for those living outside Sweden and maybe in Germany and other parts of Europe, that the formal protection in Sweden, it is strict. With very few exceptions, you cannot go in and do anything in this. Forestry-wise, it is forbidden in most cases. So it is a good protection, but it's very little protected on the other hand. And also this only concerns productive forest land. We have also other tools like the woodland key habitat inventory. This is not the kind of protection which many people think and believe it is, and especially now the government or our authority working on this, they will probably abandon this method, and in worst cases they will erase the register with these woodland key habitats. Then it will be hard to know where they are. But if we look at woodland key habitats that lays outside formal protection and also the voluntary set-asides done or made by the corporate forestry, it's not that much either. It's very little actually, and it's not much more to the west either, above the lower limit of montane forest. So it's very small. Here we have the voluntary set-asides, so it's a lot more actually, especially in Jämtland, there to the lower left, 7.6%. The problem with this is that we don't know what they consist, what is inside of these, because there is no metadata. You cannot go in and read about this, even which tree species grows there. So it's a little bit problematic. Also, it can be moved around and it can be sold, and it can obviously become clear cut as well when no one is looking. So it's not a very good kind of protection. There are other issues with these two last kind of protection or definition of forest, and that is that they are very small. 45% of the voluntary set-asides, they are smaller than 2 hectares, and 57% of the woodland key habitats are smaller than 2 hectares. And then as a forest ecologist, I know that the edge effects and isolation of these small patches, it is becomes more and more obvious and more severe the smaller you have these patches of remaining forest. Another problem is that although we have a lot of protected forest in the west, it is in a low productive area. And in many studies, higher productivity gives higher potential biodiversity and vice versa. So it is problematic. So to summarize, the area of high conservation value forest is constantly decreasing. We may think that now when there's a little left, we had stopped logging these forests, but that's not the case. They are logged every day. Also, our conservation targets, we are getting more and more ambitious with these at the same time as we have less and less to protect with high conservation values. So there's like a gap in knowledge from the government especially, and also from the authorities, I think. As we could see in the maps, in many parts of Sweden, we have already passed the thresholds for even the lower conservation targets. And then remember that 17%, that's a quite high target after all, compared to what the formal protection, how much we have already protected. So to reach those limits or targets, there's a long road ahead. I think that forestry need to take a big step back and our nature need to heal. That's the only way right now. And also we need to restore forest landscapes to increase the amount of forest that our species can live in. And I don't need to say the last words. So that's far enough. Thank you.